The Helix is coming. You heard that right. The Helix is coming. If you're looking for a place where innovators, entrepreneurs, and other smart people gather, you don't have to go to Research Triangle Park. You don't have to go to Silicon Valley. It is all right here in New Jersey. Minutes from Rutgers University and a short drive or train ride to New York City, Philly, Boston, and DC. So what is the Helix? Well, the Helix is a new innovation district in New Brunswick, New Jersey that offers a range of physical environments, a vibrant innovation community, and a strategic central location. The Helix will uniquely mix workspaces, classrooms, laboratories, venues, and a collaborative environment to create a dynamic community and setting for innovative minds. Universities, startups, Fortune 500 companies, entrepreneurs, researchers, and many others are already signing up to call the Helix home. Thus far, the Helix has assembled a community of innovative private and public organizations such as Rutgers Health, the New Jersey Innovation Hub, RWJ Barnabas Health, Hackensack Meridian Health, universities from Ireland and Israel, and others. The Helix is coming. Visit helixnj.com to learn more.
From NJ.com and the Star Ledger, welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights, with your hosts Steve Politi and Rutgers insiders Brian Fonseca and Pat Lenny. Let's start shopping.
All right, hello everybody. Welcome back to the Rutgers Rant, our Picks Pod edition for Penn State. Three of us getting ready to schlep on out to State College, Pennsylvania. If you listen to the pod, you know this is my favorite trip of the year as I grit my teeth. But I'm driving with Fonseca, so we're going to have a great time. Carpool. Going to listen to this. What are we going to play in the car? What are we going to listen to? Brian, what we got?
I say we open that up to the floor to the listeners of the Rutgers Rant, because
Yes.
if I leave it up to you, it's going to be Springsteen and every opera song from Mozart in 1640. So we'll do the Boomer Zoomer version. Hey, we could do the Boomer Zoomer game in the car. You play a song, I play a song, you play a song. It'll be a great little time.
If you got a good podcast suggestion for Brian and I on I-80, whatever interstate we have to take to get there, please submit them now. Looking forward to it. All right. Before we get to our picks, before we get the Penn State breakdown, we got some topics here. We got the basketball game, rack improvements, and I want to start with the non-rant rant, as I'm calling it, because fans did not like our characterization of Greg Schiano's sort of strange confessional at his press conference this week as a rant. Pat, you called it a rant. I think for people who don't understand, if you go to these press conferences every week and someone says something interesting, I mean, it just qualifies as like a really big moment. This was interesting, Pat, right? I mean, what was your thoughts when he started talking and kept talking?
It was not just that moment, which took on a life of its own, to steal a line from Greg Schiano. It was the whole press conference. He had a very joking manner, was very lively, moving his hands all around. He hit the mic at one point on his soliloquy. I characterized it as a rant because there was no answer to the question, and it just went on.
Not even close.
What to say. So that's why I thought it was a rant. Maybe there was a mischaracterization there, but I'm going to stand by it. But if maybe
don't back down now.
A soliloquy is a better
soliloquy
definition of what that was.
That's a tough headline word, but it could be a soliloquy. I was just surprised it didn't, and this is what got me. Tell me if you disagree, but I just didn't think it was something that needed to be said. Of course people would have signed for 6-3 and down 6 points to Iowa. I mean, I just feel like after the Indiana game, everyone, and not just us in the media, but there was just this general sense of, great, this is now a good season. It's an accomplishment. It's progress. It's the whole, we've said it in the podcast, we wrote it. I gave him a contract extension after that game, and then we took a pause and we went, okay, all right, well, we got 4 games left. What can be accomplished here? And I thought that was kind of, not that we had moved on from 6 wins, but certainly everything that we've covered or everything we've talked about, it's kind of been, all right, this is all gravy. What's the team got? And clearly against Iowa, didn't have anything.
Yes. And it seemed like it was not spur of the moment. It seemed like he planned to get that message across somehow. I did ask his rant, soliloquy aside, whatever you want to call it, came a question after I asked him if he would consider making a change at quarterback, considering how poorly Gavin Wimsatt is throwing the ball. He shut that down really quickly. I don't know if it was simmering. I don't know if it was the person who asked the question itself. I don't know what caused it. But he very clearly wanted to say in not so many words, and I'm paraphrasing him here based on what I read of this. Hey, guys, can you be a little grateful here? We won 6 games, for Christ's sake. You guys thought we were going to win 4. How about a little gratitude and not expecting us to beat a juggernaut in the Big Ten West who's going to win the conference and is 8-2 and has beaten really good teams? I think that's kind of the recalibration that he was trying to set to say, let's take a step back and realize like we're still in year 4 of rebuilding what was a really bad program. We already overachieved, which I think is probably fair to say. 6 wins is a bit overachieving. I guess my rebuttal, I would say, is everyone would sign up for this in July, 100%. I think when you win 6 of your first 8 games and you look better than expected doing it, expectations change a little bit. And I don't think it's unreasonable to think when you go into a game where you're essentially a pick'em against the worst offense in modern Big Ten history, that you can not let them have their best game of the season, and you could score at least once, and you can not have a stinker. I think they're allowed a stinker. I kind of think maybe we did go a little overboard. It is what it is. I think that there are still a lot of questions brought on by that performance, but I think Greg Schiano wants everyone to say, calm down, take a breath. We're in a pretty good spot here. Let's not start saying the sky's falling when 2 weeks ago we were saying, let's throw a parade down. Where do they throw parades in New York? What is that thing called?
Yeah, Canyon of Heroes. Yes.
Thanks. I haven't celebrated a New York championship in quite some time, so I forgot what it was called.
Yeah. So that's great. And I think you're absolutely right about the point being that he wanted to get that out there about the season. But there were some layers to it too. I mean, you had to kind of to peel back the onion. He also wanted to say to us, and I'm saying us, the Royal fans, media, us, that here's why we're playing this way. Was the other that was a big part of this. Like we have to play this way to win or to have a chance to win, and that's why when you take shots like I did, when you take shots at the game plan, and that's what I wrote immediately after the game was that this was a brutal game plan. I thought, I still think it was, by the way, and I think that was his point. Like this is why. When you look at Gavin Williamson's numbers, this is what the quarterback. I think he just wanted to put all that out there, which for me is a point you can agree or disagree with. This is not like a true fact. 6-6 from 6 wins is a good season. I think that is hard to disagree with. But for me, I think the offensive plan was bad for that game. I think a lot of people agree with me. I just don't. You were trying to win that game 6-0, 6-3, and it wasn't going to happen. I just don't think. I just thought that part of it. All right, you want to defend where the program is or what's happening this. Overall, the big picture. That's great. I don't know. It was a bad game, bad coaching, bad performance, and that's what we do. We react to games. That's ultimately what the media, the fans do. It's the whole point of this. Not to bigger and elongate this any longer than it has to. I generally agree with that. Was really the only game plan that would have worked. I think they very clearly are. And look, again, I've written about Kevin Wimsatt's accuracy issues. I do think there's a major question mark at that position. In fairness, I think the complete lack of depth at wide receiver and at tight end makes it so that when you're playing an elite defense and you can't run the ball, it's almost impossible to score, right? That was really I know people wanted deep shots. I think that was something that you probably wanted. Who are they throwing the deep shots to? Right, I wanted them to try at a certain point.
We just want to screen pass.
We wanted something. We wanted not to be outcoached by Brian Ferentz in the biggest game of the year. There's a million things. It's just other than running the 3 plays and punting. It was just, what are you guys? It was just not. Look, I get it. Good defense. I understand all that. Maybe they were due for a game like this. I understand that too. But Pat, I don't know. Am I wrong?
No, the game plan was so obvious to me. And once they couldn't run the ball, that was it. There was no life to the offense. And to be fair, when things weren't working for Brian Ferentz, he was running jet sweeps and screens and hit his tight end who was lined up at fullback for a 60-yard game.
Backfield.
Creativity there.
Right.
There was creativity there. Whereas Rutgers, there was zero creativity to the play calling, which is. There hasn't been a whole lot of creativity to the play calling this year. Rutgers is going to do what it does, try to get to 3rd and 2, and then, run a quarterback power on 3rd and 2. Like the game plan, it's at this point, like very predictable. So no, you're not wrong. And the other part of the rant soliloquy aside that I want to address to pull back another layer is that he also addressed in the middle of this tangent that NIL is free agency.
Detroit, I know. It was great.
He needs a payment the size of Detroit. His mind was all over the place, which just makes it why I thought it was a rant.
It was perfect. Yes, the size of the Detroit line free. Oops, and he did like a little Betty Boop. Oops, with the Detroit. But it was fun. Look, I love it. And I listen.
It wasn't necessarily an angry rant. Maybe that's why people get it so like twisted. He wasn't yelling or angry or twisted anyway like that, but his mind was all over the place.
Right. And it was colorful. I think it's funny, like if you listen to the other the Yahoo Football Inquirer, when they talk about this, like the Jim Harbaugh talked about chickens. Well, anything that's interesting is, to me, and it was certainly interesting. It more debate about it is better. Ultimately, I think everyone agrees, though. That's the broader point. Everyone agrees with the central point of what Greg Schiano said. And I guess that's the big part, the biggest takeaway.
These things are awesome. I hope Greg Schiano has a rant every Monday and does this is great. I mean, I can't speak for all of us, but I was sitting there. I think Pat would agree with me, kind of in awe. Like, is this really happening? Like, what is going on? And he was joking around with us, right? Like, he opened a little bit of the big picture window about obviously saying that we would have signed up for this in July. And I tried to sneak in a big picture question that I do every week. He shut that right down, but he was very, he was good about that. So
I was hoping if one of you, it would have been great if one of you at the end of this would have just said, just as a follow-up, Greg, about the handoffs with the read options or whatever the initial question was. If you went back to it, he would have been like, "Oh, I see that." That would have been like the perfect jersey. You could have went back to the original question. That would have been funny. Which I didn't like. I didn't think that didn't strike me as a really controversial question either. The whole thing was great. All right. Let's move on. Let's talk basketball. A couple of big things happened basketball-wise. The first part, the bigger part, is that the team seems to have found its footing, at least against, we'll just say it's November opponents. Oddly, Georgetown, worse than Bryant, I thought, watching them. But yeah, I mean, finally you see a rotation. You see Gavin Griffiths, what he's good at. You see some of the other guards making plays, Brian. I mean, defense was pretty good. What overall now, what are your takeaways 2 weeks into this after the Princeton loss to where this team is now?
First of all, Georgetown stinks. They stink.
Yeah, we all knew they were going to stink. I mean, that's not.
I'm just saying, when people see, wow, Rutgers beat Georgetown by double digits. Georgetown is 185th on KenPom. The worst team in the Big Ten is Minnesota at 101. They stink. They look very clearly like they're struggling to learn Ed Cooley's system. It's their third game together. That's totally understandable. Anyway, my point being that I still think that Princeton has been their best test, but I think that's pretty clear. I would say that I'll start with the major concerns I still have watching this team, just to get the negative stuff out of the way. They can't hit a layup. It's mind-boggling how hard they struggle to finish at the rim.
It's wild too. Yeah, there's so many plays too. Noah Fernandes had a couple of wow, what a great drive, and oops, banks off the back of the rim. It's so frustrating.
It's confounding. I have no explanation for it. Maybe it's a snowball thing. And there's one point that Steve Pikiell made in his post-game presser that made sense to me. Sometimes in transition, it feels like they're just trying to play so fast that they get to the rim and they can't stop and finger roll the ball. Like they're too sped up. I think that's certainly a possibility. And the free throws are, aside from Derek Simpson, who's hit all 12 of his attempts this year, brutal. I mean, just brutal. They don't get to the free throw line enough, and when they do get to the free throw line, they struggle to make them. That aside, Gavin Griffiths, I'm very impressed with him offensively. I think he has a chance to be, by the end of his freshman year, the best offensive weapon they've had under Pikiell, better than Geo Baker, better than Ron Harper Jr. Very impressive. I'm very worried about his defense. They really need to clean that up as soon as possible, because what he's giving you on the offensive end is almost being taken away by him getting beat pretty badly on just about every other defensive possession. He's going to be targeted on one-on-ones. He's going to be switched on to often until he can clean that up. Cliff Omori, foul trouble early in 2 games of the first 4 games. That's a little worrisome.
It was. They were better without him in the first half too, which is interesting. I get it. I know you're going to say short window, whatever, but it was just it was interesting to me watching it. Like, oh wow, they flipped the switch with Cliff on the bench.
It's a fair point. They outscored Georgetown. I think I had the numbers in my story. It was something like 18-4 without him, and then he comes back on, and that's right when Georgetown's run to cut the lead happens. I don't think it's because of Cliff. I think it is a coincidence, but you bring a fair point bringing it up. I think this team is very clearly going to depend on its defense, as it always does under Steve Peichel. I think the offense will be a work in progress. That's to be kind. I think they're going to hope that the 2 freshmen develop and get better, that Noah Fernandes gets more comfortable. He looked good in the second half. And that by the time that really important stretch, Illinois, Wake Forest, Seton Hall comes around in December, Mawot Mag is back and ready. I believe that's the point they're targeting, because that's really the season there. If you lose 3 of those games, it's over. Essentially, I think that's where they're targeting, and you got to hope that in the next 2 weeks they have 2 games against Howard and St. Peter's. You rest up, you work on in practice, you get those 2 wins, and kind of take some jumps there, and you're ready for that monumental stretch.
And it's interesting, Pat. Like I've now started to watch this team in a different way, maybe just because the signing day thing was on my mind, and I knew that Steve Peichel was going to address it. And he did address it. If you want to read Brian's story about what they said about the recruiting class, obviously you know who the recruits are at this point, but he talked about it for the first time and gave some insight on what he expects from those players. I've started to like watch this team in a different, like putting the new pieces around the current pieces. I know that's not. It might be like, all right, well, how are these guys going to fit in around the newcomers? Because I do feel like in a lot of ways this is a bridge year to what everyone expects to be a really big year next year. And there are some pieces. Like I keep on coming away with that. Like you see, like JaMychal Davis in the first half, really good. Yeah. And the same with Fernandes Griffith, in the second half. Griffith in the first half.
I think you're 100% right. And from a fan perspective, what's better than to dream about this possibility of next season? It's so alluring and fascinating to think about. Okay, right, we can bring in Ace Bailey and Somerville and all these guys, and we can plug here and develop them and see what this looks like. So I think you're right with your assessment that we can still win and this could still be a bridge year and all that. Speaking for Rutgers, of course. But yeah, I think you just got to take it game by game and just see how it all unfolds, because like you said, they're figuring out the rotation, they're figuring out these guys are settling in. So just take some time. Like Brian said, these next 2 games are good tests, and then the really important stretch comes. So just stay patient.
I do want to say 2 things. It's remarkable watching this team this year, and then just imagining a little NBA player dropping in and playing at the rack. It's almost unfathomable to think of. Steve Peichel and the players were kind of reserved on that. Steve Peichel really didn't seem to want to single out Ace Bailey and talk about his impact, which I understand. That's a very Steve Peichel kind of thing, team over individual. But to have a guy who's projected number 4 in the 2025 NBA draft by the albeit very early mock drafts at Rutgers. Rutgers.
Right.
That is unbelievable.
It totally is. It really is. It's just hard to wrap your head around. It is. Absolutely.
And the flip side of that is to be excited for that season next year does not make having to go through what could be, you guys call it a bridge year. I totally agree. Could be a tough year it's not like you have, better draft capital at the end of this year if you have
but it could be. And certainly after Princeton, I'm like, oh boy, it might be. The last few games, I'm like, okay, it doesn't have to be, I guess is where I come away with right now. I know, I saw some things that at least make me think like, all right, there's this team's got some promise. Like, let's see how they do in the Big Ten.
I don't think this is going to be 2016-17 bad. I don't think so. I just think it's going to be a departure from the last 4 years where fans were expecting to be in the bubble race in February and things are exciting the whole season. I mean, it's possible, but I just don't see it. So I think if that possibility happens, it might be tough to wrangle through February, but to have the light at the end of the tunnel, maybe have another 5-star NBA level prospect coming in. If that ever happens, whenever it does, I think that'll kind of get people through, but it's just incredible that you're at the rack. You're seeing a pretty good crowd on a Wednesday night. To imagine the noise level at that place when Ace Bailey is in transition and throws down the most vicious dunk you've ever seen is remarkable to think about.
Let's talk about that place, because this was the other big piece of news. Rutgers released a survey, and just trying to like think of a good analogy here. It's like if someone walked up to you in the mall and said, "Hi, we'd like to ask you some questions about the survey," and you took the clipboard from the person's hand and broke it over your knee, which was the response of a lot of Rutgers people. It's like, I don't want to take your stupid survey. Don't want good things at the rack. People were angry about it. I wrote a column that kind of felt that. And I think part of it is because all of the questions were, do you want a top hat and a monocle? Or would you prefer a mink coat and caviar? I mean, like the whole thing was very like, I mean, I don't know. And they did it for a reason, because they're trying to figure out what luxury seating people will pay for. It doesn't mean like every one of these examples of luxury seating is going to be in the rack. I mean, they're trying to figure out what people want. Totally understandable. I think the main takeaway is that people want more urinals and not to have to stand on someone else's feet when they're trying to leave the building in the concourse. I think that was my main takeaway. And I guess that you must have gotten the same sentiment from people.
For the plebs, we'll start with the urinals. But in the corporatization of big time college athletics, it's really important to sell suites to businesses and bring in corporate money. That's how you make revenue. So Rutgers is trying to prioritize, how do we actually make money off this building? And that's why the priority of this survey was about monocles and mink coats, as you put it, Stephen.
I get it, but so totally, and they're going to do that, and they should have some of that. Absolutely. There's no, right now, the luxury option at the rack is just a parking spot you can get out of without waiting for 3 hours. But like I guess my question, like Brian, we're talking about like Cameron Indoor Stadium, or does that exist? Some of these places don't. It's just a different thing than an NBA game. Am I wrong about this? Like, if you go to a college basketball game, you're just looking to scream. You're looking to be around students. You're looking for the energy of it. You're not looking for a sushi bar and a high-end, single malt scotch. I guess that's just where I come from with this. And certainly you're not looking for it there after 50 years of habit building about the rack.
I think there are two conflicting desires here. The school wants to make money and profit off of this very exciting product they have. And to do that, you need luxury suites that will invite companies and sponsors and the rich people who have disposable income to spend 5 figures for season tickets to go watch Rutgers basketball, which is one of the hottest tickets and is going to be one of the hottest tickets in town next year. I think everyone else that's been going to the rack for 50 years and dealing with very bad basketball and still coming back and sitting in the 100s, and families who have had generations of season tickets want very simple things. They want more bathrooms. They want a wider concourse. They want better concessions, and they want the atmosphere, most importantly, to stay the same. And I think that is the trickiest balance to play.
Sure. And they don't want their seats to move too. That's the other part of it. Absolutely.
They don't want their seats moving. They don't want their seats to go up 10 times the price, which seems almost certainly going to happen when that's not only because the tickets are going to be in higher demand and because the team is better and because they're going to have one, maybe two NBA players, but because, yes, the luxury seating that's going to be included. But here's my argument. One of the main reasons this program is good and is where it is because of the design of the place, the noise the fans make, the passion they have, and how involved they are. I think the players and Steve Pikiell have been very vocal about that. If you close off the corners and make a 360-degree concourse like they plan to, and if you can reconfigure where the student section is, which I believe is possible, moving them to the sidelines, and if you add, more importantly, these luxury seats where if you pay $25,000 for a luxury seat, you're not going to be standing up drinking a beer going, screaming at, during defense. You're going to be sitting down and clapping with your caviar in your hand. Good job, boys. Good job, fellas. I wonder that's going to kill the atmosphere. I think you wrote that in your column, right? The new Yankee Stadium, the new MSG. When you get people that aren't the people in the 300 slugging back beers after a day of work, and you get the people entertaining their clients for whatever bank you work at, that is a very different crowd.
Yep. People don't care as much. That's the other part of it. And to the broader point about the ticket prices, they're going to go up, and the Rutgers will be stupid not to raise them. I mean, it's very simple. Like I hate to say it, but people who have been going to the rack at a certain price point for the past 20 years, because the teams have been bad, we're going to be angry about that. But yeah, I mean, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, it's going to be a it's going to be a higher ticket. And so it's fascinating. And the final thing I want to say about this, because I do think it's the broader issue of college athletics in 2023. It goes back to this, like, do you build the Death Star for the football team, or do you funnel all your money toward paying the players? I think it's pretty clear that most coaches at this point are like, we need to pay the players, because they've seen it up close. Now you're doing the same thing with basketball. All right, this is a little different because this is going to pay people. It's going to pay for itself in some ways once they get the revenue from the seats. But at the same token, you're going to outlay, I don't know, $100 million. You get 25 from the state, $75 million. You got the fundraise for this. Is that money better spent, or is it better spent telling people, hey, we got a collective over here. John Newman's got his pillowcase out, looking for his UNICEF cardboard box, looking for loose change so you can pay the guys to stick around after their first year. I don't know. That's really a central question here. It's hard for me to right now, where college sports are, not make the argument the money's better spent on NIL.
I know no one cares about people. It's all about profit. It's the truth for everything in our society. But it just does sadden me that there are people who live and die by this program, and a lot of programs around the country who are going to be shoved aside for the people who have more money, who view it as an entertainment, a night out, versus like, this is my life. I care very deeply about Rutgers basketball.
That is sad. Totally.
Experience the Heldrich Hotel, a luxury hotel that's perfect for both the business and leisure traveler. Ideally located within minutes of Rutgers University, the Heldrich is convenient to all the action and activities at SHI Stadium, Jersey Mike's Arena, and the Rutgers University campus. The moment you walk through the doors of the Heldrich Hotel and Conference Center, you know you're someplace different. A place with an independent spirit and a boutique vibe. A place where you can immerse yourself in your meeting or event as easily as you can the local culture. Located in the heart of the city, the Heldrich lets you experience all that New Brunswick has to offer. Whether you're coming to New Brunswick for a fun weekend with friends, in town for a Scarlet Knights game, or attending a business meeting, book your accommodations today at theheldrich.com.
All right. Good job on those three topics. Let's talk football game this weekend. Let's talk about Penn State. Following the Nittany Lions, it's like the year I feel like they've had this year every year. They're beating everybody except the two teams that the fans want them to beat. They're just dying for them to beat. Another season without a win over Michigan and Penn State. Offensive coordinator get fired. I was a little surprised by that. Pat, I mean, give me a breakdown of is this team going to sleepwalk? Like, is the hope here for Rutgers that this team is going to be like, all right, I see, we're going to the Citrus Bowl. Who gives a crap? We're going to sleepwalk through this thing.
I think, yeah, I really do. And if you look at the way they played against Michigan, they got completely bullied and run over, especially in the fourth quarter. Like, they had no will to play that game, and that was their biggest game of the year. So I think you're right that Rutgers does have an opportunity to catch them sleepwalking, and in between coordinators too makes a little bit of difference. That's why I wanted to ask Greg about it, if that changes anything, or what, because it was a surprising fire. He's clearly the scapegoat in this James Franklin situation, right? Like, Penn State isn't an explosive offense. They play great defense. They're kind of they're a lesser version of Ohio State, which Rutgers played pretty well. So I think it's a decent matchup for the Scarlet Knights, who are getting a lot of points in the spread. So I'm really interested to hear the picks.
It's tough, Brian, though, when you think about playing another defense like this, when your offense your team's already beat up. We knew this was going to be a bad stretch in the schedule, and now we're seeing it up close.
Yeah, Penn State is just Iowa, but better in every aspect.
Yeah.
Penn State's numbers look brutal against Ohio State and Michigan. They're like destroying everyone else offensively aside from those two. I think they're averaging 42 points or something to that effect in those games. I think the hope is they sleepwalk because they almost lost to Indiana right after the Ohio State game. They sleepwalk there until the fourth quarter. I'm not sure Rutgers has the firepower offensively to do what Indiana did, frankly. Like, I'm trying not to do the one game sample overreaction, because after Ohio State, we thought they were going to run all over Iowa. And now after Iowa, I don't think they could run over Kearney High School. So I'm trying to be a little bit more generous and be objective. And if you hope that Kyle Monangai is back closer to 100% or as close as he can be, you hope Jaquay Jackson is back.
Do we think those guys are going to be back?
I would say I'm more optimistic about Kyle Monangai than Jaquay Jackson. His injury looked a little brutal. He didn't come back after he got out.
Right. Kyle
Monangai finished the game, so I would say that. We'll get to their picks in a bit. I don't give Rutgers much of a chance. But before we get into that, I do want to say Penn State, they're like in a marriage that they're staying together for the kids. and in this case, the kids is a $64 million buyout. James Franklin wants to get out of there so badly, and Penn State wants to get rid of him so badly. But the kids are just not going to grow up for another 3 or 4 years until it drops down. So
there's no oil money out there to pay $64 million to this. And he's been, let's face it, like he is he's in the top 2% of college football coaches. I get it. Like, I mean, what more do you want to be Ohio State? I understand that, but I mean, other than that, the guy wins 10 games every year. I mean, good grief.
But he doesn't win the game.
I know. I hear you. But get some perspective, folks, out there in the middle of nowhere with nothing else to pass time other than these 12 games a year. I mean, please, people, get a grip.
Assuming he doesn't get the guy who built the ice hockey arena is the only rich donor I could think of that says, here's $64 million. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he'll be the hugest beneficiary of the 12-team playoff, because that'll be a scenario where a team like Penn State, who maybe doesn't win their conference, could sneak in as the 10th seed or whatever and at large, and then they get a better matchup than Ohio State and Michigan, which knows all their signs because they play each other every year.
Exactly. And start losing to Georgia as opposed to just losing to Ohio State. Exactly.
At least it's something different, you know?
Something new.
They're sick of losing to the Buckeyes and the Wolverines. Let's lose to some Big 12 team. Go Boomer Sooner, baby. Boomer Sooner. Let's lose to Oklahoma.
All right. What is the line's 20.5? What's the standings? We all tied now? Is that what it is? Because what do we got here?
You and I are tied.
We're tied. You and I. Okay.
You and I are tied. Pat is down a game.
Because you picked, what did you pick Iowa to?
I picked Iowa to win and cover. And not to brag, I'm the only one left that's 10-0 straight up. 10-0. If you've been riding my picks, you could buy out James Franklin contract if you've been riding my picks.
Straight up. Yeah. A lot of people worried about that. Okay. Good job by you. So you're in last, Pat. I'm sorry, I didn't know that. We only game behind though. An opportunity.
I will take down one game with 2 games to go. I would sign up for that in the summer.
3 games. We're taking this to the bowl game, certainly. But this doesn't end after Maryland. You've got a chance to come back. All right. So Brian, you want to go first? You want me to go first? You tell me.
Let's keep tradition going. You can go first.
Okay. All right. I'm prepared to go first. I kind of hinted at where I'm at with this 20.5. It's a lot of points. But I just think of this would be a chance for Rutgers upset in a different scenario. Like you almost wish what would have happened if they hosted Penn State after the bye week at 6-2, feeling good, some time off to rest the guys who are banged up. Now it's just a different scenario. You're coming off these 2 brutal games. You're going on the road. I get it that the Penn State might be disinterested, but I've thought that many times before, and Penn State's been just fine in these games. Granted, Rutgers is better, but still, I know. Again, I didn't love what I saw offensively from Rutgers, certainly against Iowa. Is it going to be different now? Same collection of receivers without Jaquay Jackson, maybe. All right, so I'm going with the lines. I think they're going to cover. I think it's going to be Penn State 30, Rutgers 7. You're up.
Did you know that Rutgers has not scored a touchdown on the road against Penn State since joining the Big Ten?
I did not know that.
They scored 15 points in 4 trips to Happy Valley since joining the Big Ten, all field goals. They end that streak. They will end that streak. They will score a touchdown. It will be their only one. Penn State is Iowa on steroids. They're going to sleepwalk the first half, maybe the first 3 quarters. It'll be, a 1-score game either way. And then eventually they're going to be like, are we losing to Rutgers? And they'll wake up and, have a big 4th quarter. And I think they'll cover as well.
Right.
I'll say something like 34-10. I just think that Rutgers is not quite there yet to upset Penn State. They've been in it with them a couple times. I just don't know if they're ready to get over the hump. And James Franklin, as disinterested and as upset as he may be, and how as badly as he wants to get to the divorce, I think he will. He'll pull through and win this game.
All right, we agree, Pat.
Well, you just set this one up perfectly for me and Rutgers to cover. So I will say this: Penn State has not. They've blown out some really bad teams. The Indiana thing is perplexing. It just makes me think that if they get a 2-score lead, are they going to be able to push it? I don't think so. So I'm going to take Rutgers with the cover, and I'm going to say Penn State 30, Rutgers 14. Rutgers covers.
Rutgers covers. All right. Well, we'll be if that happens, we'll be not at the top. If not, you will be eliminated. That's fair. The other thing I worry about, like you think about what Kirk Ferentz did late in that game when it was 22-0, and he could have gone for the last touchdown, and he was a sportsman about it. James Franklin ain't going to do that. He's going to score. So that's the other part about like when you look at 20.5 points, you're like, if it's late in the fourth quarter, is he going to take a couple of knees or run in the middle of the line? No, he's going to be James Franklin. So, all right, we'll see who's right about that. Hey, it's Boomer Zoomer time. Woo-hoo. All right, I got some heat from people who think it was too hard last week because I obscure saxophonist graduated from Iowa, and I was struggling for people to put on the list. I do not think this is going to be a problem this week. I really do not think there's anything obscure here. Could be wrong. I think it's pretty easy, actually. I'm going to put the over-under at 8.5.
What?
All right, you're right. 7.5. Says I always forget that. But if he misses the first two, I'm going to drive to New Brunswick and to beat the crap out of him. So let's keep that in mind. So Pat, I would take the over if I were you.
All right. Sold. Over.
Okay. All right. You ready, Brian?
There's no shot you're coming down to New Brunswick. Let's be real.
Nah, he's good. There's nothing you could do to make me get in the car and drive that far. You're absolutely right.
I'm ready.
Okay. For 1 point, can you tell me who Keegan-Michael Key is?
He's the James Franklin impersonator, the comedian Key and Peele, the bald man. Yes.
There you go. All right. So it was about as easy as you can come, right? That was an easy start.
Sure.
All right. For 2 points, can you tell me who Penn State alum Ali Krieger is?
The United States women's national soccer team player?
That's correct. 2 points. Too easy so far, Pat?
Gave him a soccer question?
Again, I've taken some heat. I've been too hard. I've been taking. I thought I just want to, and we want to like diversify the list here too. It's important.
Yeah. All
right. For 3 points, can you tell me who Ty Burrell is?
He's an actor, right?
He is.
I've heard his name before. I can't tell you where he was in, but I've heard his name before. Can't tell you.
Okay.
What was he in?
Pat, do you know?
Don't know.
Tough name. If you saw him, you'd know. We'll give you half points for this. He's Phil Dunphy in Modern Family. So if you saw his face, you know who he is. He lived in a car, I guess. So this was like a funny story I was reading as I was researching this. He got his Master's of Fine Arts I wouldn't have guessed you could get a Master's of Fine Arts at Penn State. But hey, he got a Master's of Fine Arts at Penn State, lived in a van or lived in a something on campus. Phil Dunphy, got to start there. This is a wrinkle. This is a good one. This one. See if you can get this one. For 4 points, can you tell me who Bruce Banner is?
No. I was hoping you'd say Bruce Beck.
Think outside the box. Bruce Banner.
Banner.
Bruce Banner. Can you see?
Bruce Banner?
You see? I think Pat Delight just went on. What?
Bruce Banner, the Incredible Hulk?
Yes.
I wouldn't have gotten that.
Radiation scientist. He's a radiation scientist. This is like he was a graduate of Penn State, and in the comic books, it's all over. Like when you're listing the famous alumni at Penn State, because the list is so bad, they have to use fictional people.
What's up with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania using fictional characters as like achievements? They got the Rocky statue in Philadelphia. They got Hulk as a Penn State graduate. What's next? Superman is going to graduate from Penn? What is this?
All right, for 5 points and the win. You still win. And I know you know this because you've answered a question correctly in the same universe as this person. Can you tell me who Patrick Fabian is?
He's in Better Call Saul. He's the he's the
who is he? Come on, who is he?
I know his face. He's one of the partners. He's like the very clean cut guy.
Howard Hamlin.
Howard Hamlin. There you go.
Meets his end.
Yes.
Great job, Fonz.
Good job. I'm going to give you a bonus too. I'm going to give you a bonus for educational purposes. All right, I don't expect you to get this. Guion Bluford. So if people who follow this know the reason we're doing this is because Brian could not tell me who John Glenn was. Guion Bluford, Penn State graduate, the first black astronaut into space. How about that? There you go. The more you know. Ding.
By the time we finish this podcast, I'll learn about every astronaut to ever walk the moon.
Every Big Ten. A lot of Big Ten astronauts. It's good.
Apparently. What about Rutgers? Do we have an astronaut?
No. Good question.
That's a bummer. I guess Rutgers basketball is the only thing going to the moon. Everything else.
Wow, look at that.
You ready for the Zoomer section of Boomer?
Yes. I hope it's as easy as the. Okay, I'm ready.
I wouldn't say it's as easy. Pat, you want me to go first, or you want to go first?
You go first. I'm still trying to figure out my pronunciation on my word. So you go.
Sure.
Oh, boy.
Sure.
Oh, boy.
Mine, I think, is kind of easy, but I guess we'll see. Do you know what it means to soft launch?
Do I know what it means to soft launch?
Or what a soft launch is? It could also be a thing. It is a
soft
thing.
launch is it when you're instead of like a real date, you're going out like with a girl, like kind of like casually to see if it's meant to be, like before you officially dating.
So sort of.
Launch.
You're on the right track. A soft launch is, for example, you're seeing a girl for a month. You're not really dating, but you're seeing her. It's getting a little serious. And you want people to know, but not her specifically. So you post a photo of you at dinner. You post her soup and a little bit of her elbow, and her hair is like
really.
So
it's that specific. Okay,
not that specific. But my point is, like, someone who sees that story says, "Oh, Brian's on a date with a girl. I don't know who it is. I don't know if it's his girlfriend. I don't know if it's just some girl. But you're soft launching the idea that you're seeing somebody."
Interesting. That is really.
And then once you're dating them, then you post a photo with them. That's called a hard launch. That's letting everyone know I'm dating this person. So There's a lot of it's not like back in the day where you kind of just meet someone, take them to dinner, and then you marry them next week. It's a little bit. There's a lot of convoluted games going on in today's modern dating age.
Thank God I'm married. That's all I got to say about that. All right. Soft launch.
Same, because I have no idea what this word is that I'm about to give you.
What hope do I have then? This is
all
like
I know is that it is spelled Kiki. I'm going to say that's
Kiki.
Kiki. And it can be used as a noun or a verb.
Kiki Vandervey. Excellent basketball player from my generation. Older than me, actually. Kiki. You got a Kiki something? Man, I don't even have a good guess about this. Can you give me a hint?
Yeah, I can. If Rutgers pulls off a massive upset, there'll be a big Kiki in New Brunswick.
Ooh, big kid, big. Is it like a party? You're having a Kiki?
Yes.
You're going to Kiki? Really?
Yeah, give it to you.
Does anybody use this?
Party or festive gathering, though it can be used as a verb. To Kiki, for instance,
no one in Jersey is
celebrate.
Using that one. Come on.
You could Kiki on a big night out, I guess.
Okay.
Like partying, but a Kiki is a party.
That's what. Hey, Brian, me and you going to be Kiki in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, because spoiler alert, you can't stay anywhere near State College on this road trip. So that's tomorrow night. We're going to be Kikiing, baby, at the Williamsport Applebee's.
To be clear to people listening to the pod, that Politi keeps alluding that it's just me and him in Williamsport. We're not like excluding Pat. Pat has a Kiki himself on Friday night.
Yes, Pat, tell us about that. I think the readers should know about this. This is the listeners should know about this.
There's a big Kiki in Philadelphia from my friend. Shout out Justin Ashenfelter. He's getting married. Beautiful bride. So yeah, it'll be a big celebration. And of course, all the wrestling fans out there should know there's also a Kiki at Jersey Mike's Arena on Friday night. Rutgers versus Virginia Tech in wrestling. Huge match. Up to 5 or 6 ranked matchups. It's going to be really heated. It's the first time Rutgers has a shot to beat a top 10 team in a couple of years. So we will have our man, Jacob Ferriet, there covering the match while I'm kikiing.
So you're going to go to the wedding Friday night, and you're going to stay at Candace's parents' house
in the Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania, and then drive to State College.
And that's like a 2-hour drive from there?
Yeah, it's about 2 hours. So it'll be, I'm going to plan on leaving at 6 a.m.
Okay.
This is what we do to cover Rutgers football for you folks. Don't ever forget it. So that's why Steve and I are kikiing separately in Williamsport. And for the record, Steve, in your defense, when Pat and I were discussing this, I told him this is about 2 layers of Zoomer beyond my comprehension. Like I had no idea what a kiki was. So.
No, but it's like Guillaume Bluford. It's something. The more you know, I can.
Yeah, sure.
I can use that key. I don't know if be able to work it in a sentence, but it's good. Good to have.
I found just a gold mine. All these words I'm finding are from Oprah, a list on OprahWinfrey.com that she's defined millennial slang, and they're fascinating. So if you want to go check it out,
because when I think Zoomer, I think Oprah. Clearly,
of course.
All right. Well, before we sign up, we gotta congratulate our man Chris Corso, the basketball SID for birth of his first child, and this is great stuff. So he was at and I noticed this, like my eagle eye. I noticed that he was sitting there where he always sits on the scores table next to the bench, and then halftime he wasn't there. It was Griffin Whitmer, who another sports information employee, who was sitting in that seat. And Corso disappeared, and it turns out that's because his wife went into labor. He had to rush out. Good stuff, man. And I kept on thinking about this. Like, if that had happened, like at the end of the game, and he got stuck in rack traffic, I mean, forget it. Like, they could have missed the birth of a child, and that would have been the ultimate rack moment there in Jersey traffic coming out of Jersey Mike's Arena. Wow.
Yep. The baby was very smart to start coming out at the under 4 timeout, the first half. Chris got rushed out of there, understandably, got home, and by the time we were wrapping up Steve Pikiell's post-game press conference, his first daughter was born. Congratulations to him, to his lovely wife, and the baby. They're all doing well. Wow. I got a message from Chris as we were taping the pod, actually. So good news, everyone is doing well. Chris will have a much-deserved 10 days off or so from all of us and the basketball staff and everybody. He'll be sleeping very little, I imagine, but it'll be nice to have his phone off. I'm sure he's excited. So yes, congratulations to Chris. And
Pikiell's going to be texting him like some early next week, like, "Hey man, I'm kidding. Of course you get time off for having a baby, even during basketball season."
Well, time too that it happens. These 10 days, he'll be back by Illinois, so he's not even really missing anything.
Take more time to that, Chris. Come on. Wait till Big Ten season.
Congrats. That's great. There'll be a lot of sleepless nights the next couple of weeks, and then again at the end of the season while we're waiting on the bubble, right? So you'll be a trained professional by March.
This is actually going to work out well. Take your paternity leave after the basketball season, because then, or even better, if you can plan it during March, then you could watch the tournament while you're just sitting there with, keeping the baby alive. Some strategies here. This is good. All right. Anything else, fellas? I think that's about it.
Before we go, I need to hear about this monumental, historic, gigantic fantasy football matchup between my 2 co-hosts on the podcast. What happened? I want to hear all about this matchup.
Pat, do you really want to talk about this?
No, I really just want to the podcast.
Not much to say here.
A complete disaster for the Lanimals.
Your team is garbage, I think is the fantasy. But the kids say, the Zoomers would say, garbage.
Politi beat me by about 70 points, so let's just end it there.
Yeah, it was 135 to 77. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Tough week for the Land.
Still starting Derrick Henry like it's 2019 here. Let's look at your write-up. Well, then Thomas too. Logan Thomas is it's good.
Right,
okay, we're
done. You have a Giants. You're starting a New York Giants receiver. I didn't even notice, and not even the good New York Giants receiver. Wan'Dale Robinson was in your lineup.
We're diving too deep. Now we're going too deep. I regret asking this question.
I had AJ Brown.
This is how we feel. This is how we feel when we say the word soccer for you. This is exactly how we feel. And then 20 minutes later, you're like, I should have done
AJ Brown on bye, DeAndre Swift on bye. All right. Hopefully I'm not starting Wan'Dale Robinson.
Politi caught you at the right time. Politi got you with your best guys out.
135 to 77.
It was about 82 to 77 when we were driving back from LaGuardia. And I was like, oh my God, this is happening. This is happening.
That's why I asked, because you were so excited. You thought they were going to make an epic comeback. I'm sorry to hear it didn't work out. So
on the way back from LaGuardia. We won't talk about that. All right. We'll be back on Monday to recap the Penn State game. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Rutgers Rant. To participate in the conversation and receive live updates about the Scarlet Knights directly to your phone, sign up at NJ.com/insider.